France, summer 1944. The United States Army faced a critical problem. The Germans, despite retreating, were still lethal. Their panzer divisions were masters of the counterattack. To defeat them, General Eisenhower needed to be everywhere at once. He needed more divisions than he actually had. The solution didn't come from West Point. It came from the art schools of New York and Philadelphia. The Army created a top-secret unit, the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. They were known unofficially as the Ghost Army. Their mission was unique in military history. They weren't tasked with killing the enemy, they were tasked with manipulating him. Their job was to simulate the presence of a massive 30,000-man armored force using only 1,100 men. They were a traveling roadshow of deception, designed to draw German fire, confuse German intelligence, and terrify German generals. They were the ultimate tactical bluff. The 23rd was composed of artists, designers, sound engineers, and architects. These weren't your typical GIs. They were creative professionals drafted to use their brains as weapons. The unit consisted of 3 specialized subunits, each managing a different layer of the illusion. The 603rd Camouflage Engineers handled the visuals. The 3132nd Signal Service Company handled the audio, and the Signal Company Special handled the radio traffic. Together, they created a multimedia war. They understood that German reconnaissance relied on 3 things: seeing tanks, hearing engines, and intercepting radio orders. If the Ghost Army could fake all 3, the Germans would believe anything. And they did. For the next year, this small unit would hold the line against real panzers, using nothing but rubber, air, and amplified noise. Let's talk about the hardware. The 603rd Engineers deployed a battalion of mnemonic decoys. These were inflatable M4 Sherman tanks, 2.5-ton trucks, jeeps, and even artillery pieces. From the ground up close, they looked like rubber toys. But from 500 yards away, or from a German spotter plane at 3,000 feet, they were indistinguishable from the real thing. A real Sherman tank weighs 33 tons. The Ghost Army Sherman weighed 93 pounds. It took 20 minutes to inflate with an air compressor. But the deception went deeper. The artists knew that a perfect line of tanks looked fake. So they used bulldozers to create fake tank tracks in the mud leading up to the dummies. They threw camouflage netting over them, badly, so the German planes would see them. They wanted the enemy to find them. They were practically inviting the Luftwaffe to attack.
Visuals were only half the battle. At night, you can't see tanks, but you can hear them. This is where the 3132 Second Signal Service Company revolutionized warfare. They engaged in sonic deception. They recorded the sounds of armored columns training at Fort Knox. They captured the specific acoustic signature of tanks moving on pavement, tanks moving in mud, bridge crossings, and engine startups. These weren't just sound effects. They were military-grade audio samples. To project this sound, they used massive 500-pound speakers mounted on half-tracks. These amplifiers were so powerful they had a range of 15 miles. Under the cover of darkness, the Ghost Army would blast the sound of a moving armored division towards the German lines. The Germans would hear the squeak of treads and the roar of engines. They would panic and shift their artillery to target the noise. They were shelling ghosts. The third layer of the illusion was the most sophisticated: spoof radio. German intelligence relied heavily on triangulation and traffic analysis. They knew that a real armored division generated a specific volume of radio traffic: orders, supply requests, status reports. If the airwaves were silent, the Germans knew the tanks were fake. So the Signal Company Special created a script. Operators from the Ghost Army mimicked the specific fists,
telegraph keying styles of real operators from actual divisions. They sent perfect coded messages using standard SCR-299 mobile radio units. They requested fuel for tanks that didn't exist. They complained about non-existent mud. They reported successful movements of rubber columns. The Germans intercepted these signals and dutifully marked their maps with heavy armor concentration. In reality, the source was a couple of guys in a truck hiding in the woods. The 23rd could portray the radio network of a corps-sized element, 40,000 men, with just a dozen radios. It was digital warfare before the digital age. But technology wasn't enough. The deception had to be physical. This is where the special effects went Hollywood. The Ghost Army soldiers were actors on a stage where the audience fired live ammunition. When deployed to a town, they would put on a show for the local spies. They sewed patches of other divisions onto their uniforms. They painted the bumper markings of the 75th Infantry or the 6th Armored onto their jeeps. They would drive a convoy of 2 trucks in a loop for hours, in the front of town, out the back, circle around, and repeat. To a German observer with binoculars, it looked like a ceaseless stream of supplies. GIs would go into local bars and accidentally talk too loud about the big attack coming tomorrow. They spun a web of lies so convincing that even other American units were often fooled, saluting generals who were actually just Ghost Army captains in costume.
The unit's first major test came in August 1944 at the port city of Brest. The American 6th Armored Division needed to pull out of the line to attack elsewhere, but they couldn't leave the flank exposed. The Ghost Army moved in. As the real tanks pulled out under cover of darkness, the inflatable tanks were inflated in the exact same positions. The radio operators took over the frequencies of the departing 6th Armored without missing a beat. For 3 days, the Germans believed the 6th Armored was still sitting right in front of them. They held their positions, terrified of an attack that would never come. Meanwhile, the real 6th Armored was smashing through German lines 100 miles away. The deception bought time, and time is the most valuable currency in war. The Germans wasted thousands of artillery shells trying to kill rubber balloons. It sounds funny, inflatable tanks and sound effects, but the danger was deadly serious. The Ghost Army's job was to draw fire. They were human targets. They carried only light weapons, .50 caliber machine guns and carbines. If a German Panzer Division realized the bluff and attacked, the 23rd would have been massacred. They operated hundreds of yards from the front lines. During one operation, a German shell landed directly on a fake tank. Instead of exploding into metal shrapnel, the tank simply deflated with a sad whoosh. The American soldiers nearby had to scramble to re-inflate it and patch the holes before the Germans noticed their Tiger Killer was made of rubber. They lived on the razor's edge. Their only armor was the enemy's belief that they were stronger than they actually were. It required nerves of steel to stand next to a balloon while 88mm shells rained down around you. The masterpiece of the Ghost Army came in March 1945, Operation Viersen. The Allies needed to cross the Rhine River into the heart of Germany. The 23rd was tasked with faking a massive crossing point to draw German forces away from the real attack. They pulled out all the stops. They deployed 600 inflatable tanks and artillery pieces. They set up a fake airfield with dummy planes. They blasted the sound of bridge-building engineers and truck convoys across the river all night long. The result was perfection. The German High Command fell for it hook, line, and sinker. They moved their heavy reserves to counter the Ghost Army. While the Germans waited for an attack at Viersen, the real U.S. 9th Army crossed the Rhine virtually unopposed 10 miles away. The Ghost Army had just opened the door to Germany without firing a single shot.
The success of Operation Viersen was absolute. The Germans moved 3 full divisions to counter the Ghost Army's rubber tanks. That meant 3 fewer divisions shooting at the real Americans crossing the Rhine.
General William Simpson, commanding the Ninth Army, later estimated that the Ghost Army's deception saved between 15,000 and 30,000 American lives. Think about that math. 1,100 men saved 30,000. That is an efficiency ratio unmatched by any other unit in World War II. They didn't win by outgunning the Wehrmacht. They won by outsmarting them. They proved that in modern warfare, information and misinformation is just as lethal as high explosives. But there was a catch. The mission was so successful and the tactics were so revolutionary that the Pentagon locked it down. The Ghost Army was classified top secret. When the soldiers went home in 1945, they couldn't tell their wives what they did. They couldn't join the VFW halls and swap war stories about blowing up tanks because their tanks were made of air. For decades, their neighbors thought they just drew pictures or fixed radios during the war. The files remained sealed for over 50 years. The United States Army wanted to keep the sonic deception technology secret in case they needed to use it against the Soviets in the Cold War. The Ghost Army vanished into history, just like they vanished on the battlefield. Many of the men who served in the 23rd went on to shape American culture. They were artists, after all. Bill Blass became a world-famous fashion designer. Ellsworth Kelly became a giant of modern art. Art Kane became a legendary photographer. They took the skills they learned deceiving the Nazis, visual impact, staging, lighting, and applied them to the fashion and art worlds of New York. But they carried the weight of their secret. They were the unsung magicians of World War II. While others built the atomic bomb to destroy lives, these men built illusions to save them. They turned canvas and rubber into a shield for the infantry. It wasn't until 1996 that the documents were finally declassified. The world finally learned about the inflatable tanks and the sound trucks. But recognition came slow. Finally, in 2022, President Biden signed a bill awarding the Congressional Gold Medal to the Ghost Army. It took 77 years, but the United States finally honored the men who fooled Hitler. Only a handful of the veterans were still alive to receive it. They didn't fire the shots that ended the war, but without them, thousands of American families would have received a telegram starting with, "We regret to inform you," instead of welcoming their sons home. The Ghost Army teaches us a lesson that is still relevant today. War isn't just about who has the biggest gun. It's about who has the sharpest mind. These Americans used creativity as a weapon of war. They painted with danger. They sculpted with deceit. And they made the German army look like fools. If you believe that American ingenuity can solve any problem, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of the heroes who saved the world. And remember, sometimes what you don't see is what kills you.